Alright then, hello Blood Bowl fans, let's continue in this series with the Greenies, the Orcs, which are apparently my key team, and I'd say they are actually. They're the team I play the most, they're probably the team I play the best. Let's see what they say about the Orcs then. The Orcs are of course the recommendation for beginners when you want to try out the Bash style. They are the best option, realistically, for a beginner coach. It says they're strong and hard to injure. This is mostly very true. The Black Orcs, the Blitzers, and the Troll, and the Lineman, this is very true. The Thrower can be a bit squishy, and the Goblin is incredibly squishy. Most players can be easily replaced when they're injured. This is true, however. Black Orcs especially are very hard to level up, so if you lose a leveled up Black Orc, this is no longer the case. It's difficult to level them, so if you lose a level 3, a level 4, even a level 2, to be honest, Black Orc, then it's going to take a long time to get that specific player back. And Blitzers have the best price to performance ratio. Yep, I think that's pretty true. The Blitzers are the key piece in this team yet again, like the humans. Weaknesses: no real agility player. Yeah, that's pretty accurate. You can play a very basic agility game with throwers and goblins, but it's not really an agility game, it's just throwing the ball, basically. It's difficult to level up Black Orcs, like I said, yes it is, and it says average speed, but actually they're slightly below average speed. They're not a very fast team at all. The Blitzers are the only team that can really move. They're a piece that can really move, and the Goblins and the Thrower, but I mean other front line. So Orcs have been playing Blood Bowl since the game was invented, and Orc teams such as the Gouged Eye and Severed Heads are among the best in the league. Orc teams are tough and hard-hitting, grinding down the opposition line to create gaps for their excellent Orc blitzers to exploit. Alright then, let's have a look at the team itself then. We're not going to be pink. Oh god, let's change that. I'm going to actually make my team for eventually the ICBBL, so I'm going to make that one now. Minus the names. Yeah, let's go for Orange Tiger, Wild Tiger, that'll do. So, that big guy gets, and give us them teeth. Part of being an Orc coach is using the Orc lingo, of course. Anyway, we're not here to build a team, but still. Okay, that will do, whatever. Moving on. And, oh, I need to name the stadium. Oops. That oval, that will do. There we go. No. So, there are 6 pieces in this team as opposed to the 5 of the human team, so there's a little bit more to learn here. Now I'm going to leave the Troll to the end this time because the Troll is really optional. However, there are 2 pieces that are not optional. There are 2 pieces that you need to have in every team, and you want to have all 4 of both of them. And we'll start with the big ol' gits, the Black Orc. The Black Orc is your big, mean, tough, almost big guy, but not actually big guy, so therefore better than big guy piece. The thing that's a bit worrying about the Black Orc is that he starts with literally no skills. He doesn't even have block, nothing like Mighty Blow, etc, etc. And he only has general and strength access, so he can get his block, he can get his tackle, he can get all this kind of nice stuff, and he can get his Mighty Blow, he can get his guard, all this kind of nice stuff. And they have a pretty interesting stat line. They cannot move very far. They have movement allowance 4, but they have pretty good strength with strength 4, which is above average. Slightly below average agility with agility 2, and a very good armor value of 9. These guys take forever to level because basically they have no skills to help them level up quickly. They can't score realistically. They only rely on damage dealing, and sometimes it takes a while to actually damage opposition pieces, especially if you're facing other Bash teams a lot. However, you do want all 4 of them, and their main role in the team is basically to hold the enemy line in place. The Orcs kind of play... I think the best Orc coaches play Orcs in a kind of hammer and anvil fashion, and the Black Orcs are very much the anvil, the Blitzers are the hammer, and the linemen can actually work as both. That's usually the best way to play Black Orcs, is to basically box your opponent in, and the Black Orcs are the one side of the box. Keeping them all close together makes them much scarier as well. So we want all 4 of those guys in the team. We'll talk about development when we're looking at the team screen. Next up we have the Blitzer. The Blitzer is actually quite fast with movement 6, well he's average speed with movement 6. He's average strength, average agility, but he has slightly better armor value than an average piece. So a Blitzer all round really is a very good piece. Also have general and strength access, so they have all of the access that the Black Orcs do. And they also start with block, which is fantastic. On a double, you're probably giving them dodge, though there are some other options, but dodge is usually the best. Also, realistically, you want your Blitzers to score. They are the pieces that you want to give the SPP to, so they are the pieces that you want to score with mostly. The main purpose of Blitzers, like I said before, is to hammer to the Black Orcs' anvil, so the Black Orcs stand in a line and stop everything. Blitzers come around the sides, keep everything in place, and at least one of them is punching something every single turn. And if you do it right, against an agility team, you'll start to put down the numbers, and then the thrower can just finish off the game. If you're doing it against a bash team, then same kind of thing, you can lock the team in one place using Blitzer and Black Orc maneuverability, basically. But the Black Orcs can't move, so the Blitzers have to really focus on the flanks. And we want all 4 of these in the team as well every time. That goes without saying. Next team member that's going to be in every single team is a lineman. And a lineman is there mostly just to get punched, to stand in the way, and sometimes to punch back as well. As far as it goes, he's a pretty standard piece, but he's slower than the average lineman, with more armor value than the average lineman as well. So he's a pretty sturdy piece, but you're not really going to be moving him too much. Movement allowance 5, average strength and agility, and slightly above average armor value. And they only have general access, so no mighty blow or something for free, only the general things. So you want the blocks, the tackles, things like this on the piece. And they as well start with no skills, and they're not likely to skill up very quickly, but you're not really using them as a skill piece, you're using them as a placeholder, so don't worry about them leveling up too badly. And we need at least one of them in the team, so let's buy him first of all. Now, these 9 pieces are in every single Orc team ever, I think. Every team that is logistical build. There's one really niche build I'm going to look at after I've looked at all this, but the majority of starter builds are going to include this setup. Now, the other piece that is very, very common in teams is the thrower. And even though he's called the thrower, people who aren't me don't use him for throwing. I personally do. I mean, he has the pass skill at the end of the day, it's not so bad. But most people use him as the ball carrier, and he stays back while the big guys do all the punching, and he runs through the gap and eventually scores. Or if he's lucky, then he passes or hands off to a blitzer, and a blitzer scores. That's actually the ideal. He has general and passing access. Most people will build him as a general piece though. They'll give him block, tackle, fend, things like this. I personally give him passing skills as well though, things like accurate, so he can actually get the ball to another piece. And he starts with pass, which gives a +1 to any pass roll, and sure hands, which gives a 1+ to any pickup. And he has 5 movements, so he's not very fast. He has free strength, free agility, and an armor value of 8, which is pretty low for an Orc, but it's average for players in general. So he is actually the weak link in the team when it comes to being punched, so you don't want him to get punched that often, if at all. And we're going to go for the standard Orc build first, and the standard Orc build is as follows. Okay, and we want at least 2. We'll just keep it at 2 for now because we want to make a troll build as well later. Right, so the standard Orc build is thus. We have all 4 Black Orcs, all 4 Blitzers, 2 linemen, and a thrower. Another standard Orc build is to drop the thrower and just have 3 linemen, but personally I would not recommend that at all because you don't have a piece to handle the ball that way. Even though a lineman and a Blitzer have the same skills in terms of agility, same stats in terms of agility, sorry, they don't have the skills to help them handle the ball. So the thrower is your designated ball carrier in the team. He's the only piece that can really do it. And the way the strategy basically works is you put the lineman on the front, usually with a Black Orc on defense, and in offense it's debatable. The way I always do it is I put all 4 Black Orcs on the line, and the linemen are there in support with the Blitzers. This isn't the build I would use though. And basically the Blitzers stay out on the flanks like the humans did, and then they come in from either side to make a boxed in opposition team. You'll find that when you have Black Orcs on the line, coaches will tend to send more players to deal with that threat, so you can completely encircle a team most of the time and slowly build your way up the line, what I like to call creeping death, where you're moving 1 or 2 spaces each turn forward and the ball carrier stays in the back behind all of the big guys. You just need to make sure that they don't break through and get to the thrower though, so you need to have at least 2 pieces in support with the thrower as well. So, yeah, if it was this build for me, I'd be using the lineman, but blitzers are also a legitimate choice. And looking at some different builds then, with this build you can actually have 3 team rerolls as well, or 2 team rerolls and apothecary, but that doesn't make a lot of sense, so 3 team rerolls is your best bet. My own personal build, which is less common and I wouldn't really recommend it to an absolute beginner, I take one of these little guys, the little sneaky git, the goblin. And the little sneaky git has 6 movement. He only has 2 strength, he has 3 agility, and he only has armor value of 7, so he is very, very squishy for an orc team. You can also take a lineman and have a goblin on the bench. That's also a legitimate build. I may actually start doing that when I think about it, but still. The goblin then, he has a few things. He has right stuff, which is only really useful when in combination with a troll. When in combination with a troll, this skill basically means he can be picked up and thrown across the pitch, which is great fun, but it's not a good idea in most situations. Though it is good for one-turn touchdowns, but for a beginner we're not really talking about that kind of thing. He has the skill dodge, which is fantastic and something that you want to give to as many pieces as you possibly can, which basically means that the opposition piece has to roll a 6 in order to knock this piece down, or a 2 if they have block, but anything else and it won't work. So as you can see, the 2 results at the bottom, they work in the same way. So this result that is a 5 on a dice roll that is slightly better, but slightly worse than a POW, if a piece has dodge, it ignores it and treats it like a push. And lastly, we have the stunty skill, which has a positive and a negative side. On the positive side, if you are dodging, you ignore enemy tackle zones. But you must subtract 1 from a roll when you pass, and if you treat a roll of 7 as a 9 on the injury table after modifiers have been supplied as a KO and badly hurt. So basically, it's easier to get hurt, and it helps you with dodging out of tricky spaces. That's what the stunty does. The positive is gets you out of tricky places, the negative is when you get punched hard. And also it's difficult for you to pass. So stunty goblin probably isn't passing. He can receive, however. It's a legitimate play so long as you use it in moderation. So if you do have a goblin, let's just have this team for a second. If you do have a goblin, like the way I usually set up, the thrower is probably passing to the goblin in the game. In this setup as well, we can still have 3 team rerolls, or we can take this and a bench, though 3 team rerolls is of course safer. The other legitimate build, one I would personally never go for, but some do, if we drop the goblin and we drop the reroll, I think that's enough, yes. Then we can buy the big smelly git, the troll. The troll has movement 4, strength 5, 1 agility, and armor value 9. So he's very slow, he's pretty strong, he can't do anything with the ball, and he's not likely to get hurt. He also has regeneration, so if he does get injured, he rerolls the injury. Now, as for the other things then, he can throw the little goblins on the team. However, there is a chance that when he's trying to throw the goblin, he will get hungry and eat the goblin instead, which would result in the goblin taking an injury roll and a turnover for the orc team. He has Mighty Blow, which means that he has a good chance of doing damage when he hits things, and he also has Really Stupid, which means that he has to roll a dice if there's nobody next to him. If there's a piece next to him, I'm pretty sure it's a 2+, let's check that though. Result of 1 to 3, yeah. Okay, so if there's nothing standing next to him on a result of 1 to 3, he basically does the same thing as Bonehead, where he just stands there going duh and does nothing. If he has somebody next to him, then it becomes a 2+ and works in the same way as Bonehead. No tackle zones, can't do anything, basically he's not on the pitch for the turn. And he also has the loner skill, which all big guys have, which means that you have to roll in order to reroll if you want to. I personally would never ever take a troll unless I was having a funny game. Unless I was making a funny team, then I would have to have a goblin as well on the team. But Troll is kind of useless in an Orc team because you already have the strength, you don't really need this piece. And he's unreliable in a team where basically the strategy is reliable without him, so you don't really need it. The one positive for the Troll, if you keep him on the bench and you use him with in combination with a Goblin in really clutch plays, then there's point to him. Otherwise, I personally would never take one. I forgot to mention as well, Troll have strength access only, so they don't have access to things like block. On a double we're taking block, otherwise it's mighty blow, stand firm, guard, the same kind of, not mighty blow, guard, stand firm, etc., all the things that we took on the Ogre. And the Goblin only has access to agility, which is very difficult, though we can give him things like sidestep, sure feet, which means that he can GFI more reliably, catch if you're going to use him in combination with a thrower, things like this. And on a double, same thing, we're mostly taking block. That's it for the team pieces, and we're not going to take the Troll. So if we go with the most standard build first of all, which I'm not a big fan of, as I've mentioned, so that's the standard build. After the first game we're going to buy Apothecary probably, but we have our 11 pieces. And the way it works is that you hold a very strong line on offense and push up one piece at a time. And in defense, you also hold the line as much as possible and do your best to get in the opposition face and do some damage. The thing I would suggest is don't rely on damage. That's not really part of your strategy, that's the bonus. The bonus is punching things, getting them out of the way. And slowly moving your way up with a controlled line that leaves as little gap as possible, because you don't want pieces breaking through to get to the thrower. In this kind of setup, you've only got the one piece to protect the thrower. If you do go for the Goblin setup, which is my favorite setup, then you have to protect both pieces. However, you do get more maneuverability. So again, I wouldn't really recommend this to a new coach, but it is a setup that I usually build with because it works best for me personally. The only major issue is that on defense you have to put 2 Black Orcs on the line until you can get a bench. And the way I play with this team is I buy the Apothecary, then I buy 2 more linemen. So I do have the free lineman setup if necessary. And if I'm feeling a bit silly later on, I may even buy the Troll, just to give me that clutch play situation. But that's a 14-man team, which is really bad for TV, so not necessarily the best setup. In terms of development though, if we have a look at each of these pieces, and we'll have a look at the Troll later on. So in terms of Black Orc, there are 3 essential level ups on a Black Orc. Those 3 essential level ups are Block, Mighty Blow, and Guard. The way I would personally do it is build 2 pieces as block pieces, 1 piece as a Mighty Blow piece, and 1 piece as a Guard piece, and then get the other 2 skills for all of the pieces following on. They also benefit from things like Tackle, and then you can give them Stand Firm, Grab, all these things that stop things from running away from them, basically. On the piece that I build with Guard, I would probably go Guard, Mighty Blow, Stand Firm, Grab. On the piece that has Mighty Blow, I'd probably go Mighty Blow, Block, Tackle, then Guard and extras. And on the 2 block pieces, I would build 1 Guard, 1 Mighty Blow, then switch them, add Tackle, add Stand Firm, etc. With the Blitzers, a lot of people recommend getting Mighty Blow on all Blitzers as the first level up. Don't do that, it's a waste. If you give it to 1, potentially 2, it means they will level up quicker, so it's worth giving it to 1 or 2. However, you need some Guard with the Blitzers as well, and I tend to build 1 Tackle piece as well, so same as Black Orcs basically. They've already got Block, 1 gets Mighty Blow, 1 gets Guard, 2 gets Guard, sorry, and 1 gets Tackle. And they get the combination of others as well, but they can also get other useful skills. If you get really deep as well, it's even worse having something like Pass Block, so you can intercept those dodgy elves. Though I'll do skill ups in a completely separate video. Whenever a piece levels up and he has a double, I'll have a look at all skills in the game. That's the way I'll do it. And the lineman, he also needs block. Lots of block in this team. The thrower also needs block, I'll say that now, so everything needs block, basically. Even the Goblin on a double, everything gets block. And the Troll on a double. The lineman needs block, he doesn't have access to all of that lovely strength stuff, so you're doing the tackle, you're doing something like fend maybe so you can reposition him easier, and he's not going to develop too quickly, so you don't need to worry about late levels, but he needs to have block and he needs to have tackle, basically. The goblin, one of the best things you can give him is catch, followed by sure feet. Then he's pretty difficult to catch, and he's pretty good at handling the ball. If you get a double, of course, give him block, and give him sidestep to make him really difficult to put down where the opponent wants him to go down. And for the throw, it depends on what you use him for. If you're using him with a goblin, you're better off giving him kind of throw skills, like accurate. Though he needs block first all the time with a thrower. The only exception I'd say would be a double, in which I'd give him dodge, but otherwise always block first. And if you're setting him up as just a carrier, then give him fend, so when he does get hit, at least the ball goes away from the piece that hit him. And otherwise, you're looking at mostly pass skills, or you're looking at things like kick-off return, so you can counteract kick, because kick is a big problem for orcs, though I usually have kick-off return as a third skill. Hopefully that made sense. If we have a look at a more developed orc team, I have a couple of orc teams because I'm a big orc coach. We'll have a look at the Wood Wars team as well, but I actually have two teams that are competitive. I have the Professors, which are my Tutor Student League team, and they've already developed a little bit. I've got block on the thrower, I've got the free linemen, like I said, two of them on the bench, we've got the Goblin, we've got all 4 Black Orcs, none of them are leveled up yet, and we've got 2 level ups on Blitzers. Blitzer got Mighty Blow first, and another Blitzer actually rolled a 12, so I give him plus strength, though he was going to be a guard piece, and now he's definitely going to be a guard piece because his strength is nice and big. And that's it for that team. Having a look at another developed team, we've got the team I have in Rebel. They've taken a few more injuries, but I've gone 2 Mighty Blow on the Blitzers actually, but that is because of the people I'm facing, and I've taken 2 Goblins. And again, that's because of the teams I'm up against, just giving me a little bit of agility. And having a look at the Woodengits, which is the team I have in Wood Wars, and they actually have a troll. I built them as kind of a silly team. And from the 2 losses you can see they're a silly team. They've had some bad luck as well, but I do have the troll, and one of the blitzers is dead, and I went for thrower and goblin. So the thrower, goblin, and troll all work in combination while the rest of the guys do all of the punchy stuff. This is not a good team build, don't do it. And that's all I'll say for orcs, I think, in terms of this. Let's have a look at opposition though. So we're the orcs this time. Now there are quite a few teams that are quite nice to see as opposition, and there are a couple of teams that are a little bit troubling to see as opposition, and I'll go through them one by one. Humans are a kind of classic matchup, and on the one hand it is nice to see humans, but a highly developed team or a good coach with humans is a dangerous matchup for orcs because the humans can outrun you. When you're up against humans, humans want to stay away from you, so your main strategy is to get up right close and personal and punch them all in their smug little faces. And if you can't do this, then make sure that you leave as little gap as possible for the humans to get through. So if the humans are playing relatively sensibly and they're standing off you, then make sure they're standing off you behind your line. In front of your line, I mean. Not behind your line, so they don't get through your line. So if the humans are standing off you, set up so they can't break through. I think a thing that a lot of people do wrong with orcs is that they focus so hard on hitting things. Orcs want to hit things, it's true, but if you only hit things and you leave gaps, then quick little buggers will run through. So you've got to kind of combine it. You've got to slow down the team and also hit things. And the hitting comes mostly on offense, not necessarily on defense. I'm not going to talk about mirrors, by the way. I ignored the human mirror, and I'm going to ignore the orc mirror as well. Dwarves are the only one of 2 teams, the only teams that I think are a bit of a problem for an orc coach. Because dwarves do what you do, but they do them better, at least at first. So, in a fight against dwarves, it's not really clear who's going to win. The dwarves have more skill though, and as a result, there's a good chance they are going to win the battle of attrition. Funnily enough, the one thing that you have over dwarves is speed, which is not something you can say about any other team. So if you have the goblins and if you have the thrower, then use them to maximum effectiveness against the dwarves, playing keep away while also having a ruck with them, because both teams kind of want to do that. And basically aim for the runners and aim for the troll slayers because their armor is lower than the rest of the team. The longbeards, you're probably not going to get them off the pitch, so it's best off ignoring them as much as possible. Skaven are obviously very fast, and it's important to keep defenders deep as orcs when playing against Skaven, because they will break through. It's not a case of if they break through, it's a case of when they break through, because Skaven are good at that. So you need to have a front line that is causing Skaven problem, doing lots of punching, and you need to have a back line that is there for the little buggers that manage to sneak through the gaps. And on offense, basically, you want to keep pushing against their line. They're going to try and keep their gutter runners, their throwers, out of your way, but the two storm vermin and the linemen are going to be quite happy standing in your way, so you want to put them out of action as quickly as possible, then focus on the gutter runners. And they will take some armor breaks, so hopefully you will get enough to lower their numbers so you don't have to worry so much about their speed. High Elf is an interesting matchup. It works in the same kind of way as Skaven, where you have to keep players deep just in case, but High Elves don't quite have that incredible pace. They can't break through quite as easily, they have to do a little bit of fighting. So, High Elves are actually quite a good matchup for Orcs, because High Elves are actually more willing to get dirty with you, and you want opponents to get dirty with you. The thing you have to worry about, of course, is the passing, but that's where the pass block comes in handy, and obviously things like tackle really help against High Elves, but when you're facing each other early, it's not such a big deal. Mostly you just need to keep the catches in front of your defensive line, not behind it. And Dark Elves and Wood Elves are kind of similar, but Dark Elves and High Elves are more likely to be willing to fight with you, whereas Wood Elves are definitely going to be avoiding you and keeping every single piece off you if possible. With Wood Elves, your best bet, to be honest, is not to go chasing them, but to make a flat line that they can't break through. And basically, if they want to get through, they've got to fight their way through. And that's a really bad day for Wood Elves. And I'd say the same for Dark Elves and High Elves, but they're more willing to actually fight with you. So you need to be a bit more careful about how you set that up. The Bretonnian team is a really good matchup for Orcs. The Bretonnian team don't really have an answer for the Orcs, to be honest. They don't have enough dodge, they don't have any kind of strength skill, and their peasants are nice and squishy. So when playing against Bretonnians, just keep punching them. That would be a bad game for Bretonnians straight away. All they can do is try and run around you, so keep pieces nice and secure. They can't dodge too well, so make sure they're all nice and tight in your tackle zones, and don't let them get away. Chaos, it depends on the TV you're facing. If you're very early on with Chaos, you're doing alright, because all Chaos can really do is slow you down. They can't really outpunch you, but they will try. But their beasts are a little bit weak, so you can focus down their beasts and just deal with the Chaos Warriors and Minotaur if they have one when you can. The Minotaur is a dangerous piece for you because he has Mighty Blow, so make sure that you keep him on the ground as much as possible. He also has one of the weakest armor values though, so you can take him out with a couple of Black Orcs. Wood Elves I already spoke about, and the Lizards. The Lizards are one of the tough matchups as well, because the front line of the Lizards is almost equally as strong as you, if not more, but they have many more weaker pieces, so it's kind of the same as the human team, but instead you want to actually lock up the Saurai, you want to lock up the Kroxigor if possible, and you want to punch the Skinks as much as possible. And when you get to the point where you have lots of Mighty Blow, the Lizards aren't too bad, but until that point it's a case of trying to knock out the Skinks and hoping that they don't get lucky enough to pick up with a Saurus. Norse is also a good matchup for Orcs, because Norse are kind of forced into a fist fight, and it's not a good ending for Norse. Even though they have block, they can take some one-die rolls. At the end of the day, the attrition is going to really wear them down. So Norse are going to be like humans. They're going to try and stand off you a little bit and try and run around you. You have to make sure that you have that same flat line that stops them from getting through, and anytime you can, punch a Norse in the face. For Undead, it's It's a bit of a tricky match, because undead usually don't stay down, because regen brings them back relatively often. The zombies can get really frustrating if well positioned, and the mummies can cause you a lot of trouble if they are hitting the correct pieces. 2 lots of mighty blow is quite painful. The whites aren't really that useful against orcs. They are the only block piece, but there's only 2 of them, so they can't really get the best use out of their whites against orcs. And the ghouls, if you can get hold of them, you can probably crush them, so you want to be focusing on doing that. For necromantic it's similar, but you've got to really be careful of those 2 wolves, because that claw will eat up your orc team. The only one that can survive the claw is the goblin, but the goblin is going to get squished regardless, so there's no point putting a goblin in the way either. The only thing you can really do against necromantic is try and put the wolves out in the same way, and the zombies can be equally frustrating, of course, as they can on an undead team. With Nurgle, I don't think Nurgle is such a bad matchup, early on at least, because Nurgle mostly stop people from passing. They are supposed to stop people from hitting them as well, but you can take a couple of foul appearance, and it not affect you too much, because the Nurgle can't get away from you if you're on them. So even though one of their skills is stopping the bash teams by not letting them hit, being stuck on them is kind of a problem for them as well against orcs, because when you do inevitably hit them, you're more likely to break their armor than they are to break yours. So again, it's kind of a fight of attrition, and the thrower has to keep hold of the ball as much as possible. Against Khemri, you don't want to get into a fist fight with the Tomb Guards, but any other piece you're quite happy punching, so you're going to have to suffer from a Tomb Guard or 2 standing on you, but you want to keep as few pieces as possible locking up the Tomb Guards, and the rest of your guys beating up the little skeletons, basically. And if you can do that, then you should be able to survive any onslaught they bring to you. They're not really that good with the ball either, so they're not really causing any problems there. Orcs are a really bad matchup for Khemri, being honest. And lastly, Chaos Dwarfs. Chaos Dwarfs are one of the other hard teams to face, because they have the pieces that can stand toe-to-toe with you, and they can kind of outpunch you in Chaos Dwarves, but at least there are only 6 of them. The Hobgoblins only have armor 7, so you want to be punching them as much as possible, and they don't have block, so you want to get rid of them. The only other problems are the Bull Centaur and the Minotaur, if they have one. The Minotaur has the same problem, he only has armor value 8, so there is a chance you can get rid of him. And the Bull Centaurs, of course, are pretty fast, but they're not so good at fighting, realistically. They have strength 4, which is equivalent to your Black Orc, so you only need a Black Orc and an assist to put it down quite securely. And that's basically it for these teams. And that's how I finished off the human team as well, so that's fine. That's it for the orcs. I've made this one shorter. I'm still working on how to deal with this, to be honest. I'm not going to have a look at in-game tactics for orcs just yet. I'll do in-game tactics in one series of its own, potentially. If there's anything else you want to see in these kind of videos, though, they are quite long. I think this one's even quite long as well. Then do let me know, but I'm going to have to be aware of the time it's taking for the video to complete. So thanks for watching if you have got this far. I hope these videos are helpful again, and I look forward to seeing your responses below, seeing on the pitch, etc, etc. Bye for now.